Okay, let's unpack this. The road ahead for truckers, well, definitely not straight. It's not.
Not at all. Constant change.
Exactly. So today we're doing a deep dive into the shifts that are really impacting your journey. We're pulling insights, directly from folks like Truckers VA
Yep.
over in the U.S., and also the really insightful, long-standing work from Life as a Trucker in Hervey.
Good sources. Solid perspectives there.
Right. And our mission really is just to help you understand these changes and maybe more importantly, figure out how to navigate them. We want to give you that full picture, something you can actually use.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is how all these different things, tech issues popping up, big economic shifts, even like really specific policy changes, they're all connected, they weave together, creating this really complex landscape. But the theme that keeps coming up, across all these sources, it's about resilience. It's about being proactive, getting ready for whatever the industry throws at you.
Yeah, being ready. Because sometimes those roadblocks, they hit you right where it counts your wallet and your time.
Definitely.
So let's start with one story that's become, well, kind of a new nightmare on the road. Cyberattacks. Picture this. A huge U.S. food distributor gets slammed. Ransomware-style attack.
Oof, yeah.
And suddenly, boom, truck dispatch, inventory systems, the dock schedules,
Right.
all offline. Just gone.
And the real world fallout is just immediate, isn't it? It's brutal.
Totally. Loads delayed, maybe rescheduled, sometimes just canceled outright.
Yeah.
Heard about drivers sitting for hours, sometimes days. Detention time racking up.
Which is often unpaid, let's be clear.
Right. And your hours of service clock. It keeps ticking.
Yep.
But if you're not turning wheels, you're not earning. Owner-operators, they especially felt that gut punch. It's this stark new reality. Like you said, cyber attacks aren't just some abstract IT thing anymore. They are absolutely freight problems now.
And if we connect that to the bigger picture, it's not just about one company scrambling or shippers having to reroute freight.
Yeah.
What's really a game changer, based on what we're seeing, is that some carriers, they're now actually mandating IT defense clauses from shippers in the contracts.
Wow. Okay. So security is becoming part of the deal itself.
Exactly. It turns digital security into like a non-negotiable. And that fundamentally changes those long-term supply chain partnerships. That whole network getting products moved.
Right.
And trucking is, well, it's particularly vulnerable. These cyber threats, they go after outdated tech. They often target the small and mid-sized fleets because, frankly, they're easier targets. They don't usually have dedicated IT teams.
Makes sense.
And here's the really critical part, the knowledge gap. Most drivers, maybe even a lot of dispatchers, they don't really know what phishing looks like or ransomware. They wouldn't recognize it.
That's scary.
It is. So you look at the different perspectives, IT experts, they're saying the supply chain is the new battleground. But drivers are rightly asking, look, if your tech fails, why am I the one losing money?
Yeah. Fair question.
Totally fair. And shippers. They're going to start favoring partners who have solid cyber protections in place. So it's about protecting livelihoods now, too.
So what are the solutions being talked about?
Well, the suggestions are pretty clear. Better tech training, obviously, for dispatch and for drivers. Putting emergency pay clauses into contracts so drivers aren't left holding the bag.
That is crucial.
Absolutely. And investing in backup systems, not just for data, but for actual freight management. The goal really has to be ensuring that when systems inevitably go down, drivers aren't footing the bill for somebody else's vulnerability.
Okay, so speaking of things hitting you directly, let's talk about another big disruptor, government policy. This next one, it could really impact a lot of drivers out there. The DOT is cracking down hard on non-domiciled CDL holders.
Yeah, this is a big one.
So from you look at the sources, what's really driving this, besides the official reasons?
Well, this move by the FMCSA, that's the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, to revoke these CDLs and learner's permits for non-citizens, it really stems from a few things. There have been fraud scandals, reports of states not properly verifying legal presence, and unfortunately, some high-profile crashes involving drivers may be linked to these issues.
Yeah.
They're specifically targeting fraud around proving legal presence and these paper mill schools that basically just churn out licenses without proper training.
Right, the diploma mills of trucking.
Kind of, yeah. And it hits non-domiciled drivers. Hard folks from Central America, India, the Philippines seem to be mentioned often. State DMVs are suddenly under a microscope. And it impacts smaller carriers, recruiters, who've relied on that immigrant labor pool.
Oh, it's controversial then.
Oh, definitely. It raises that big question. Is this a smart safety move, or is it, maybe going too far? Critics are already firing back.
Like who?
Immigrant rights groups are saying it unfairly targets foreign workers who are trying to do things the right way. Some carriers are worried it's just going to make the driver shortage even worse.
Okay.
But then you have the supporters. Truck safety groups say it's long overdue. Some veteran drivers feel they're being undercut by poorly trained, maybe underpaid drivers brought in through questionable means. And the FMCSA, they say it's about leveling the playing field, protecting the public. But the bigger picture here, beyond just foreign licenses, this whole thing really shines a light on cracks in the entire licensing system.
Such as?
Well, weak oversight of CDL schools, inconsistencies from state to state, and a system that's just overloaded because of demand, which, unfortunately leads to shortcuts sometimes.
Okay, let's shift gears again to something maybe more futuristic, but it's definitely here now. Automation, self-driving trucks. The feds seem to be loosening the rules.
Yeah, easing the path a bit.
But California, sounds like they're pumping the brakes. Hard.
That's a good way to put it.
NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, they updated their guidelines, trying to fast-track self-driving trucks, less red tape, easier crash reporting. Basically, the federal government is saying, let's get this tech rolling.
Right. Go time.
But then California steps in, passes a law saying any autonomous truck over 10,001 pounds, it needs a human driver in the seat, period.
Yep. Effectively saying, hold on, we still want a licensed CDL holder up front. It really sets up a conflict.
It sounds like it. And for truckers, these mixed signals, they must create a lot of anxiety, right? Job fears, questions about the future of CDL schools, dispatch roles, if these trucks take over.
Absolutely. It's unsettling. But let's ground this in reality for a second. You've got different players with different views.
Okay.
The innovators, tech companies like Waymo, Aurora, they love the lighter federal touch, means faster deployment for them. But the unions, like the Teamsters, they're pushing back hard. Huge concerns about job losses and, importantly, safety.
And California's angle.
They're prioritizing caution, safety, and protecting jobs within the state. And truckers themselves, they're divided. Some see it as, well, it's inevitable. Others are adamant. You cannot program instinct. You can't program experience.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
And the reality check is this. These AD trucks, they're still very much in the testing phase, especially in tricky weather or complex terrains. Human backup drivers are still the norm in almost all these driverless tests. Widespread, fully autonomous rollout, that's still years away.
So not tomorrow, then?
Not tomorrow. It's a definite wake-up call for sure. But your expertise, your skills, still essential. For now, anyway. California's pushback proves not everyone's ready to just hand over the wheel yet.
Okay, good perspective. Now let's pivot to the money side of things, the financial currents. Starting with something that sounds technical, but definitely hits the wallet. LTL freight classes. They're getting a big overhaul for 2025.
Yeah, the NMFC is changing.
Right, the NMFTA, National Motor Freight Traffic Association.
Yeah.
They're updating the National Motor Freight Classification System. Kicks in next year. Based on new stuff like density, how easy it is to handle, and stow, liability.
All the factors that determine cost.
Exactly. Why does this matter to you, the driver? Because these changes directly affect how much the shipper pays, and crucially, how much the carrier earns. Some freight, it's going to move up in class, get more expensive to ship. Some might move down, potentially cheaper rates.
Which means potential for disputes, especially at first.
You got it. For LTL drivers, you might see more confusion during pickup, maybe during delivery too, potentially more claims, more paperwork if the classifications are wrong, and delays. And we all know, especially for an LTL driver, time is money.
Absolutely. The thinking behind the change, though, is that the old system was, well, it was kind of vague. Hard for new shippers to figure out, and it hadn't really kept pace with e-commerce, new packaging types.
So modernization.
Basically, yeah. The goal is more accurate, more transparent pricing. But who wins and who whines? Tech-savvy shippers, maybe carriers who've been eating costs on underclassed freight. They might do okay.
And the losers?
Well, inexperienced shippers, maybe some brokers, and definitely drivers stuck at the dock arguing about codes. They could lose out, particularly early on while everyone's adjusting.
So how can drivers prepare?
Good question. Brush up on the new NMFC codes when they're available. Ask dispatch or your carrier about training. And honestly, don't be afraid to push for transparency if a load's classification just feels wrong. Being informed is your best defense here.
Good advice. Staying on the money theme, let's hit a big one. A major economic reality check. Truckload demand. It's crashed, down 25% year over year.
That's a huge drop. Significant.
Yeah. And long-haul freight seems to be shifting away towards slower options like intermodal, like rail. So what are the core economic forces driving this big shift?
It boils down to a few key things. One, we're seeing a retail slowdown. Consumers are just spending less
Yeah.
overall. Two, those inventory gluts companies had. They've mostly worked through them, so there's less urgent need for restocking.
Less rush orders.
Exactly. And three, shippers are laser focused on cutting costs right now. Intermodal rail is cheaper than long-haul trucking, so they're making that switch where speed isn't the absolute top priority.
So trucks are losing some of that long-distance market share.
Correct. Rail companies are definitely benefiting. They're picking up. The freight shippers don't want to pay premium truck rates for anymore. Large fleets, they're generally better equipped to weather these slowdowns.
But the smaller guys.
Yeah, owner-operators, small carriers, even new drivers who came in expecting higher rates, they're feeling the squeeze. No doubt about it.
So how are truckers adapting?
This really highlights something crucial we're seeing across the sources. Diversifying income isn't just a nice-to-have anymore. It's becoming a core strategy.
To protect themselves from these swings.
Precisely. To mitigate that freight rate volatility. We're hearing some drivers see like a 20% reduction in financial stress just by having income coming from outside the truck cab.
Interesting. So what forms does that take?
Well, within trucking, many are diversifying their freight, moving into reefer or flatbed or hazmat to find niches that maybe pay better or are more stable.
Smart.
Others are actually becoming brokers themselves or focusing more on local or regional runs that might be more consistent. The point is, they're actively securing their future, not putting all their financial eggs in that one truckload basket.
Right. Taking control. Okay, now let's look at what the government's doing, or saying they're doing, to help. This ProTrucker policy package,
Yeah.
Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy announced it,
Yep, made some headlines.
includes $180 million for 900 new truck parking spots, specifically mentioning I-4 in Florida, using Jason's Law grants. Promises of streamlined regulations, more flexibility. Sounds good on paper, maybe.
Maybe. But what are the bigger issues this package isn't really touching? And are truckers kind of seeing this as, well, just lip service?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, and our sources really hammer this point. This package, while having some positives, seems to skip over some persistent, deep-seated problems.
Like what?
We're still talking about wages that often don't reflect the stress, the skill, the sacrifice involved in driving, that fundamental lack of respect, the poor conditions at too many docks and rest stops. That leads to burnout, high turnover, especially for new drivers who often leave the industry broke and disillusioned.
Mm-hmm. Still a huge issue.
Huge. Plus, things like inconsistent enforcement. ELD harassment is still a complaint. Confusion around split sleeper rules. These need real clarity, not just vague promises of cutting red tape.
Some mixed reactions then.
Very mixed. You know, the sources suggest that while maybe the old hands want more than what they see as crumbs, newer drivers, small fleet owners, maybe regions like Florida getting those parking spots, they might see some genuine benefit from these first steps. But the industry response goes way beyond Washington, D.C. Private companies, the big truck stops, Love's, TA, Pilot, they're quietly adding spaces themselves. Tech is stepping up to apps like Trucker Path, Park My Rig, helping drivers find available spots in real time.
That's helpful.
And driver advocacy is growing. OTR YouTubers, union organizers, independent groups, they're putting pressure on officials, making noise. So the bottom line on this policy package, it feels a bit like a sandwich with, decent bread, but pretty skimpy filling.
Good analogy.
Real progress, that would look like national minimums for parking, real protections for pay, meaningful ELD reform, and crucially actually listening to drivers when making future policies.
Listening to drivers seems key. So wrapping this all up,
Yeah.
what does it mean for you, the driver listening right now? It's world of trucking. It's constantly moving, sometimes turbulent. You've got cyber threats, economic downturns, policy shifts.
It's a lot to juggle.
It is. But truckers are, by nature, incredibly resilient people. And it really comes back to what Hervey from Life, as a trucker, says, right? Seeing the issues from all angles. It's so important for you to understand the whole picture, not just what's happening with your immediate load today.
That's exactly right. This whole deep dive, it isn't just about understanding changes for shippers or for carriers. It's really about you managing your time and your future. Not just for the next load, but for yourself.
Empowerment.
Yes. That's the consistent message across our sources. Driver empowerment, building a secure future, and the proactive solutions that keep coming up, learning new skills, using your off-duty time wisely, and really critically, building online income streams.
As a buffer.
Exactly. It's presented as a shield, protection from the ups and downs of freight rates, the wider economy. Having money coming in online can help you retire when you want to, as one source put it. It can soften the blow if your trucking company suddenly ceases to exist.
Real security.
That's the goal. And the sources even point to specific places to look for help with this. Free guides, training on AI tools at retirefromtrucking.com, truckersidehustle.com, plus more insights over at lifeasatrucker.com. This proactive approach, that's how you can really feel respected and supported. By taking the wheel of your own future, not just the truck.
Yeah, that not letting these external forces dictate your path. It's about being prepared.
Prepared for anything.
So it's clear the industry throws constant challenges your way. New rules, economic shifts, tech disruptions. But the real power, it seems, lies in your ability to adapt, to keep learning, and to actively plan your next move.
Couldn't agree more. The wheels might stop turning temporarily, but the smart truckers, they never really stop moving forward. So the question for you listening is, how can you make sure your journey continues, even when the road itself changes under you? What skills, what income streams can you start cultivating right now to ensure you're always in the driver's seat of your own life, your own career? Something to think about.